Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we've got another amazing story for you guys coming to us from the US. We have Debi Young on today. Debi is an abductee / contactee of ET UFO phenomena and is also a certified clinical hypnotherapist, specializing in emotional freedom technique, meditation, sound therapy, Reiki, and shamanic practices. She has facilitated an experiencer support group in Nashville, Tennessee since 2012 and is a referral source for Starborn Support, the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, and MUFON. Debi has appeared on numerous radio shows in the past and was a speaker at UFO conference Experiencer Speak 3 in 2014. This will be her first interview after taking a 4-year hiatus. She is the creator of the Experiencer's Toolbox, Flowchart, and the Experiencer's Journal. Debi currently lives in Southern Maine and offers online sessions for those working through issues with their own experiences. So thank you so much for coming on, Debi.
Oh, thank you for having me, Yannick.
It's been too long.
It has.
And so I went back to one of your old presentations, guys. We've been friends for a while, and I forgot a bit about your story. So looking at, viewing the presentation, I realized that we had so many experiences in common. So if I recall correctly, your experiences started off as a child.
Yes, which I didn't realize until later, after my conscious experiences started happening and in talking with my parents is when I realized, oh, okay. And so when I was a kid, like we had discussed earlier, I needed to sleep with my bed against the wall. I didn't like the doors, the windows, the closet doors. And I was a sleepwalker. So my dad at some point had to put like a little lock up above so that I couldn't reach it, because I would be walking out of my back door toward my neighbor's field. Now, after I had had a couple of my major experiences, it was a few months after telling my parents, and my mother brought up Crazy Patty that lived across the street. And every night, Crazy Patty used to get in her nightgown, climb up on her roof to watch the ships come in. And so they would come in that field that I was always heading toward. So, and I remember looking at my mother saying, "You're just now telling me this?" Really? Like I could have really used that validation when all this stuff was going down. So, it was validating to hear that, okay, one of my neighbors clearly was a big believer in that and saw them. So
at what age did this happen to you?
So I know the sleepwalking, I think, was between like ages 4 and 9-ish. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then I guess I just stopped. And
did you sleep against the wall like I did? Okay.
Yes.
Well, my belly was tucked against the wall, so I would sleep like parallel to the wall, tightly tucked against it. So
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you were afraid of like things under the bed?
I don't really know what I was afraid of. I just know I was afraid and wanted to have that security of having like a little barrier. I don't remember a whole lot of what I was afraid of. I just knew I was afraid.
So you don't remember if like lights was coming in through the windows or anything in general?
I don't.
Okay. I
just remember being afraid of the windows. So
did your parents ever wake up to having you beside the bed at night?
I don't recall them saying that. Okay. And I don't know if they remember details like that either. So
yeah, because you were a sleepwalker. So I'm trying to compare your story with mine because they do tend to be similar.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened after all these events?
So that was the what I know of the little childhood issues. And then when I was about 20, I remember coming home with my parents from someplace, and we were going in the back door, and it was a real quiet, clear night. And there were these 2 huge balls of light just over the tree line, quiet as can be, moving very, very slowly. And all 3 of us saw them, and we stopped and we were like, what in the world is that? I mean, there was no sound, just big balls of light. And I actually went in and called the police department to see if anybody else had reported anything. And at that time, nobody had. And then I don't remember what happened after that. I guess we just went inside and put it to bed and just didn't really think much of it after that. So
where did this took place?
This was in North Reading, Massachusetts.
Okay. Do you recall if there was any missing time?
I don't. And again, like, it wasn't a subject I was into. We did feel like, okay, that doesn't look normal. It doesn't look like an airplane, doesn't look like military helicopters. I wonder if when we went into the house after I made that phone call, if there was anything, because I cannot remember. You'd think we'd be sitting around talking about it a little. Like, I just don't remember anything after that moment of calling the police.
Yeah. Because how close were they?
So, if you look at, picture like a pine tree, like it was just over the tree line. Like it wasn't super high. It wasn't like way up there. It was just above the tree line.
Yeah, same as me. Okay. Yeah, well, not close enough to actually ram it to the tree, but slightly above it. Like,
yes,
mine was about 30 feet above. So
yeah.
Okay. What color was it?
It was just a bright white light.
White.
Round, bright light.
Can you like gauge the size of it?
Gosh, I can't. It was a long time ago.
I know. Sorry.
Compared to the tree, I don't know. I don't know how to make that distinction. Like, it wasn't small like a basketball. Like, it wasn't like that. It was bigger than that. It was not like bigger than the width of the tree. Like, it looked like it was just sitting right above it.
Okay.
And just moving super, super slow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you know if any of yours, like, do you have siblings? Are you like?
So I'm adopted. I'm adopted, and I'm an only child as an adopted child. But I have found my birth family, and I do have several siblings from there, but some of them I'm not in touch with at all. Okay. So,
like, are you aware if they also had these types of experiences?
My brother, he did have something where he was, I don't remember his story exactly, but he was in the back of a car, and like this huge bright light came upon him. And I don't remember all the details with that. I do have a cousin though, who her mother was very much into the subject of UFOs. And so she and I kind of wondered if there was a reason she was into that, is maybe she had some experiences, and unfortunately she passed away, so we couldn't ask her. Okay. So both of those happened in my birth family.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what happened after those orbs? That story.
So that was it. I mean, there was really nothing else to tell after that. We just saw them, we observed them for a few minutes, called the police, and then I don't remember anything after that. So that's pretty much the childhood experience up to about age 20 from what I'm consciously aware of. So, and then it wasn't until I was in my 40s that's when all the big stuff started happening.
Okay.
So,
well, yeah, I do get into that. Really? Wow.
Okay.
Well, still like 10 years of even like more 20 something-ish.
Yeah. Well, and that's not to say things weren't happening and I just wasn't paying attention or wasn't aware or wasn't ready to know. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened?
So my first major conscious experience happened in November of 2011. And I had come home. I had a sleep study done and they let you go at like 5 a.m. So I came home and I was wide awake and they had put a CPAP machine on me. So I was very oxygenated. So I came home and I couldn't really sleep. And I finally went to bed about 2 hours later at 7 o'clock in the morning. And that is when I had what I referred to as a dream. And in the dream, I was looking up and there was a ship and a beam of light came down. And it sounds cliche, but this is how it was. The beam of light came down and it started to suck me up into it. And I was fighting it. And I felt like I was just moving around trying to stop it. And then I heard a male voice say, "Debbie, we need to do this. Just relax." And as soon as I heard that voice, I just kind of surrendered. And I felt like I had done it 100 times. And then everything went black. And so I don't remember anything on the ship. I don't remember anything after that. I did wake up about an hour later, and I was panic stricken. And again, in my head, this was a dream. This was a really, realistic dream. And I'm not a person that really remembers many of my dreams. So I had called my husband at the time and I said, "Where are you?" And he said, I just took our daughter to school. I'm like, "Please come home. I just had this horrible nightmare." And then the next day I had this really bad rash on my neck and a little bit of a sty in my left eye. And I didn't think much of those things. I didn't relate those two things until 2 months later, when I had what I refer to as probably the most physical experience I had, because I was not asleep when this happened. It was in January of 2012, and it was around 3 a.m, and I was reading a book with my book light, and I had just put it away to go to sleep, and I'm settling down into bed, and I hear a noise in my living room, and then I hear another noise in my kitchen, which are on different sides. And I'm like, oh gosh, and so I go to wake up my husband, because that's what you do when you hear noises in the house, right? So I go to wake him up and I couldn't move. I was completely paralyzed. I had this roaring hum in my right ear, like a deafening hum. And the whole room was full of a blue light. And then I started hearing the pitter pat of little feet running around. But I couldn't move to see what they were doing. And so my eyes could move, my eyeballs, which that's a real common thing with the sleep paralysis, is your eyeballs somehow still move. So I strained and I really tried to look over to my husband's side of the bed. And there was your typical little gray, but it was glowing like an electric blue. And I remember thinking, gosh, that's unusual. That's not what you hear in the Hollywood movies, is that blue. It was like an electric or cobalt kind of blue. And I could just see him just from the chest up. And then everything went black. So then I woke up about an hour later, and I was trying to wake up my husband to tell him what had just happened. And I was groggy and I couldn't get my words out. And it was like that feeling when you've had general anesthesia and you're coming out of general anesthesia and you're like fumbly, right? So now he usually he'll jump to it. Like if I need him to get up because I hear a noise, he's usually, right there. And he couldn't talk. He couldn't really move much. And we both just fell back to sleep. And so a couple hours later, when it was time to get up and get ready for the day, we talked about it a little bit. And then I had a complete breakdown where I was just crying and shaking. And it was mainly because I thought I was crazy. I thought I have lost my mind. And then I wondered, am I going to lose my child? Am I really crazy? If I'm not crazy and this is happening, are they going to hurt my family? And I remember having this helpless and hopeless sense that even if I died, I wouldn't be able to escape them. They could still get to me, even if my soul was passed on into another dimension.
Oh.
And I don't know what made that such a profound thought. But and then, you know, in retrospect, I think if I was crazy, usually a pill can kind of fix that, right? Like that's easily fixable, relatively speaking, right? Whereas the reality of it is not such an easy fix, and something that always has you questioning and questioning yourself. You know,
Yeah.
I've gone in and out of the field just because, you know, you get tired of it. You know what I mean.
So what happened? How long was he there?
I mean, I had just looked at him for like a couple of seconds and then everything went black. Okay. So I don't know.
So you
I don't know
out,
how. Yeah.
And you woke up the next morning, right? Or what?
Well, then I had woken up an hour later,
okay,
a little groggy, trying to get my husband to wake up. And then we both fell asleep, okay, and woke up 2 hours after that.
When I woke up with my shadow beings in the bedroom, I was super drugged up, groggy,
really?
like you said. So that's why I'm smiling.
Yeah.
But I was able to move though. I was able to say hello with my hand, but it took all the effort in the world to say hi. But as soon as my hand was up, I blacked out.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what makes the blacking out, if they're doing it, if it's our own reflex to do it to ourselves. I don't know. But again, after that experience, I had a sty in my eye and a rash. But this time I got so sick. Like I had a high dry fever. I was in bed for about a week when I finally felt able to go to a doctor. It wasn't strep, it wasn't the flu. They called it tonsillitis because they didn't really know. They said, we don't know what this is. It's unusual. We're going to write down that it's tonsillitis. And my glands were just huge. And, you know, the rash, and over most of my experiences, I will get that rash on the side of my neck. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if they're touching me with something there. I don't know what it is.
A friend of mine, he was warned not to touch the craft, but he did. And he had this weird wart grow on his finger that took a long time to get rid of.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
So you might catch something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and people have said too, like I did wonder, was there some kind of bacteria that we're not used to that I was exposed to? Is the rash from some radiation? Like, I don't know. We don't know. No. We can only speculate. So, okay. But then in February of 2012, I had a really pleasant experience. So in that experience, I was having a dream early like around 7 a.m. And in the dream, this was a repetitive dream that I have. It has nothing to do with aliens. We were moving into a new house, and it was room after room after room with people in it. And I was like, oh gosh, I guess we're going to be living with all these people. So I woke up and I'm analyzing the dream. And then I hear this voice come out of nowhere, a male voice, very gentle, and in my right ear. And he said, organized religion and dogma complicates the evolution of our soul. Pure love and gentle heart truths gently moves us in our ascension process. So as he's talking, I knew to grab my phone and start typing into the phone. And then it was gone. And I was like, oh, I mean, I don't recall being paralyzed or anything during that, but it was just the gentlest male voice giving this beautiful message, you know, an important message. Yeah. So that was nice. And I'm like, okay, keep those coming because I can handle those a little better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a life changer.
Yeah.
Did you get other like telepathic messages like that?
Yeah, I had a couple. After that one, I want to say it was March. Now this was more of an astral thing. I was standing before like a council of beings, and this hooded being was in front of me, and it was a woman. And I felt like people were standing on either side of me also. So I'm looking at her, they're kind of like behind her, like in an arc. They're all kind of, I could tell they all had the same kind of robes or hoods on. And she said, follow the eagle. The eagle is not new, it is ancient. Listen to the eagle. And she kept saying it over and over and over again. And I remember thinking, okay, lady, I've got it. I've got it. But I don't know. I don't know what that was about. I had another experience where there was like a blue, that same electric kind of blue holographic brain kind of floating in front of me. And what had happened was my daughter and I had gone to see the Smurfs movie. And jokingly, I said to her, because, they're little blue guys, right? And I'm like, oh, that's kind of like my little blue being that I saw. So in this experience, the brain says, you need to spend more time with your Smurf.
Really? Oh.
So it was kind of like, I'm like, okay, that's weird. So it's almost like this consciousness knew I had been at this movie with my daughter, referring to the Smurf as my little alien, blue alien that showed up. And again, I don't know if that meant to be meditating more with these beings I don't know, but I thought that was very interesting. I've had dreams where I will just see these apocalyptic events, like, and in one of them, it was like everything was getting bombed, which is kind of weird since that's what we're going through right now in our world. But like massive, like nuclear type of chaos. And in the sky were hundreds of ships just kind of watching it all. And so that wasn't really a message, but it was more like of a vision, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So what happened after the like the blue being? Did they ever come back after that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And that was and that was such a full-on physical experience because I was not asleep. I had just put the book down and shut off the book light, and I'm snuggling in and I'm trying to wake my husband up to go look and see what these noises are. I mean, I was very much awake, and I really thought in the moment that I was going to die. I'm like, this is it.
Okay.
And I want to stress too that, and I've said this in past interviews, that I can't say I was afraid of the blue being. I think it was the shock and awe of the whole experience that I always say if it was an angel experience or ghost experience, we're used to that. That kind of fits the paradigm that we've been brought up with, right? It's not really a foreign wacko kind of thing. But aliens were not really brought up with that kind of, and when I say aliens also, I want to kind of clarify that I don't know that they're like going from point A to point B kind of aliens. I don't know if they're just interdimensional. Every day quantum physics is showing there's all these different layers and dimensions to our realities. The multiverse, multidimensional. I don't know. I don't know where they come from. Are they from a star system? Maybe. Are they from this interdimensional place? Maybe.
Yeah.
But the whole unbelievableness of it was just so unbelievable, and that's what was petrifying.
Did you ever find out why they were in the because they were at two places at the same time? One was in the kitchen, I believe.
Yeah, like it felt like they were running around the house. Okay. Like they were just walking around the house. Okay. Yeah.
Oh. Are you aware if you ever have had any like phantom pregnancies, something like that?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I've been told that I have hybrid children somewhere, and that I asked to not have any memory of them because it would be too painful. Oh. But that's all I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so at what age did this happen? The blue being?
The blue being, that was in 2012.
Okay.
So 10 years ago,
Okay.
so I would have been 44.
Okay. So did anything happen after that, or did it take you a while before anything of consequence happened?
Well, no, I mean, there was a period of time after that where it was a lot of little things, like every couple of days, every couple of weeks, like couple of days to couple of weeks, where it was just so much. And I got to this point where someone had said to me, if you ask them, if you meditate and you ask to be left alone, they should honor that.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. I'm like, I need a break. I just need a break because it's all too much. I'm exhausted. And I think I got a break. I think I did, because I have no recollection of certain things after that time. I did. So there were a few, there were still things happening once I kind of settled back in, and I was like, okay, I'm okay now. One of them was my ex-husband was going away for a business trip for 5 days. And it was the first time I was going to be without him since all of it started happening. And I really meditated and I said, I need you to stop for these 5 days. I just need no contact, just leave me alone, please. And I did a lot of EFT, which is what I use with other people that have had these experiences and they're having, negative emotions from it. I sailed through the whole 5 days. Nothing happened to my knowledge. And that's what counts, is to my knowledge. They could have been doing things. As long as I don't know, I'm good. But then the day he got back, that night, I was going to sleep and I meditated and I said, okay, the portal is back open. And I was kind of just kidding. And then the next morning I was talking to my mom on the phone and I was fiddling with the outside of my knee. And I felt these raised bumps and I looked down and it was just this perfect triangle of raised dots. And I had that once before, but it was on my stomach and they were more like pinpricks as opposed to the raised dots. But I thought it was just so strange that here I am like, oh, the portal's back open. And then here's this mark on me. There was also an experience where, so I did a lot of work with practicing my abductions and visitations, meaning I would kind of pretend it was happening. And because, usually we all get panicky, right? I mean, it's a panicky feeling, especially if you're paralyzed, if you have the sleep paralysis going on, it's very unnerving. So I would practice just relaxing into the experience, not fighting it. And I always used to say that a good meditation makes for a good visitation. So I started doing that. And so one night, there were things I could feel a presence in the room. I went through the paralysis, and instead of fighting the paralysis, I just really tried to relax into it. Things were foggy and then went black, but then it was pretty quick, I think, that I woke up from it. And my husband was getting up to do something, and I said, hey, something just happened. And he was like, okay, do you need me to hold you? I'm like, nope, I'm good. I got through it. The date that happened, I found out a few days later, someone on Facebook had posted that a crop circle had been in this is funny too, Gray, Tennessee, on Gray Station Road was where this crop circle popped up on the same night that I had those experiences. So just a few hours away. And the Gray Station Road, the town of Gray, Tennessee, which I had never even heard of before. So that was really interesting to think, okay, so we hardly ever get crop circles in the United States. No. So that was interesting that it happened, but it happened that same exact night.
What's so traumatic that you wanted them to stop? Did you get like paranormal stuff happen, like hauntings or?
Well, okay. So what's interesting too, so when those first couple of events that happened, somewhere in my memory from the 80s was the book by Whitley Strieber. And I couldn't remember the name of the book, and I couldn't remember the guy that wrote it. So I just started Googling, and then it came up. And of course, it's such an iconic picture on the communion book. And I wrote an email to Whitley Strieber, and I told him what happened. Within 30 minutes, he got back to me, which I thought was wonderful. And he said that my story sounded like the story of someone else in Australia that he wrote about in the communion letters. So of course, then I'm Googling the communion letters, and it's not in print anymore. So I wrote him back, and I'm like, hey, can you tell me anything? So he sent me the chapter of the book, and I don't remember exactly what they were, but there were similarities there. Then I reached out, I think it was to MUFON, and they had Kathleen Marden and Denise Stoner call me and take me through this whole phone interview. And Kathleen said, have you had any other paranormal things going on? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, yes. So we had been taking some pictures in the house, and there were these brilliant orbs, like perfect round orbs, in picture after picture after picture. And then there was another picture that looked almost like an ectoplasm. So all of this was going on at the same time as the alien experiences. And Kathleen had said that's a real common thing, to have other things going on too. But it was funny that I didn't even put them together. And all my life I have had a lot of psychic experiences, but I didn't think much of it, until this stuff started happening. And you've probably had this happen, and I hear this a lot from experiencers, is their psychicness really gets kicked into high gear. Like, even though you might have had some psychic experiences before, they really kind of jump a little bit. So I did notice that. Yeah.
Did you foresee something that would happen eventually? Stuff like that?
I have had some of that happen. That dream, the vision where all the chaos, the nuclear war and everything was happening. Obviously that hasn't come to fruition yet. But I'm like, gosh, I hope that that's not something that'll come to fruition. I had a dream where, I was dreaming that my dogs had gotten these little snakes. They were like little baby snakes. And I woke up and the dogs were barking out in the garage. And there was a doggy door going from the garage into the yard. And I go out there, and there are 3 baby snakes. And I'm like, okay, that I just dreamt that. It was just in my consciousness, and here it is in the flesh. So, things like that.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. Sometimes.
I remember when I Skyped with Audrey Hewins once. She dreamt that her sister Debi was with child, and which turned out to be true. And I had this female voice tell, like maybe an inch away from my ear, that I could be an uncle, which turned out to be true. I found out 3 months later that the voice was telling the truth, that I was going to be an uncle, because my brother phones up to tell me that his wife's with child. So that was
wow.
Yeah. So there's something out there, really. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Did you have any other ET experiences after that?
Gosh, those are all the high points, I would say. One thing that happened in my 20s, my late 20s, I had what I call an angelic experience. So that would have been something between what was going on with my parents and then all the big stuff. And in this experience, and some people have said, well, maybe that wasn't really an angel. Yeah. So I had come to Nashville from Massachusetts, and I was staying with someone who was less than favorable. And I really like just needed to get out of there. So I packed up everything, and I had this really big footlocker that I had everything in, and she was on the second floor. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get this down those stairs. Like I was really stressing about it. And the day before, I had been really like crying and praying to please find a way that I can just get out of here and go back to Massachusetts. So after I pack everything and I'm, really nervous about it, I open the door and there's a man standing there right in the apartment door. And he said, "Can I help you with that?" And he was just a lovely man with kind of sandy curly hair. And I said, "Oh yes, that would be great." And he picked up that trunk like it was light as a feather, walked down the stairs. He put it into the trunk of my car and he stepped back. And so I stepped forward to shut the trunk. And when I turned around, he was gone. Like it was only a second that I didn't hear him walk away, nothing. So that was kind of an interesting, and I thought it was an angelic experience. I've had a lot of experiences with the roaring hum in the ear, and a lot of people will say that hum is when you're shifting dimensions or something else is shifting dimensions to get to you. But I had one experience that was really lovely where I was laying on my left side and I could feel a little bit of the paralysis, but it wasn't bad. And then it felt like all my cells were dissipating. And that's the only way I can explain it. It felt like I was just dissolving. And there was this feeling of all-encompassing love. And I remember thinking that's kind of like what you hear near-death experiencers talk about, right? Is that all-encompassing love. And you just don't want it to go away and you want to stay in that forever. So when that happened, I thought it was, have you heard Jim Sparks talk about being taken the easy way and the hard way?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, oh, this must be like the sucking up in the ship was the hard way. I thought, oh, maybe this is the easy way, like where you're, kind of dematerialized to go through whatever you're going through. And then, so I have sleep apnea. And what I realized is I had not had my CPAP machine on that night. And so I wondered, could that have been a near-death experience where I stopped breathing? So I talked to 2 doctors and a respiratory therapist about that. And they said they've heard a lot of stories where people with sleep apnea, I mean, it basically means you just stop breathing. And usually, your system will kick in and get you to take a breath, but sometimes it doesn't. And, you can die. People have died and people have not died. They've had that kind of an experience and then they're okay. Thank goodness. So I don't know. I don't know what that was.
You sent me a drawing of a UFO saucer. I think you had a weird dream about that. Yeah.
So that was one of those dreams where it was like an apocalyptic event. Yeah. I've also not the same event, but a different one where I was seeing like a film strip and it was just going super fast. And again, it was all apocalyptic kind of stuff going on the film strip.
Okay.
So
you did send me a lot of photos of bruises. What happened for those to happen?
I don't know.
Weird, yeah.
I would wake up with them. I've woken up with them. My daughter's woken up with them. My ex-husband woke up with them. So, so like the last 4 years, I've not been talking about this to anybody. I had a couple of triggering events that made me just, I had all of my interviews and everything parked on a website, and I shut down the website. I got rid of about 800 Facebook friends that were through the alien UFO community that I really didn't know. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm just done. So coming back in, I think I told you before, I feel like the universe always kind of pulls me back into this. So yeah, I just, when that saucer, all those different events, like, have you had those, the apocalyptic
Once, yeah.
dreams? Did you? Okay.
Yeah, but my girlfriend left me the day after, so it could be
Oh
related.
gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That could have been just stress. But yeah, what was your question? What did you ask me there?
Okay, well, the reason why I found you on the net was a story that your daughter had regarding like a weird
The Albert Einstein.
yeah, the Albert Einstein
Yes.
story.
Yes. Yeah. So she's had her own experiences, and a lot of her experiences were happening when mine was. So she had a dream where she was in a circular room, and this Albert Einstein character was wheeling out this machine, and it was a good sized machine. And the way she described it was that there was a little seat, and she was, I think she was like 9 or 10 at the time. She said, it was like the seats that you see molded onto the rides at Chuck E. Cheese. And I said, okay. And so she was sitting in this little seat, and the Albert Einstein character was timing her on doing something with this machine, this computerized thing. And she was very stressed out, and she did not get whatever the task was done in time. And then a door slid open, didn't open like a regular door, kind of was sliding. And my mother and myself were standing there. And she said, you were like zombies. She said, you weren't moving, you weren't talking, you were kind of glassy eyed. And then she woke up. So again, that's kind of like that same feeling, but the way she was describing it was like how I felt after the blue being experience. Yeah. So you had something also, right? With the,
well, yeah, the way she called that the Einstein ET, whatever. But when I had an episode when I was like in a white corridor with it really looked like a white asylum, but everything was white again. And like multiple doors in a corridor. And when I looked up, I was on the floor, and there was a gray, but like a doctor, like doctor's coat, lab coat. But it was a gray, but around 6 feet tall. But he had what I would call Einstein hair at the back of the head. Nothing on top, just at the back, but very unkept, very dense. And I called him my Einstein. So that's why I called out to you. And not too long ago, I was on Michelle's show, and Misha Johnston, and the way I described the hair, she started laughing, and she said it was probably a hybrid, because what I was describing was what she called was cotton candy hair.
Oh, yeah.
So that really, really made sense, because that was how it really looked to me. And so I thought, okay, so that really did happen. So I'm really glad that your daughter had that, because the way she explained there's so many experiences out there, abductees, contactees, when they're on craft, they're always seeing like furniture, but coming out of the walls, molded into round, nothing, no sharp edges. Everything's molded, rounded off.
Yeah.
So to have a kid so young tell you that is a no-brainer. It did happen. Wow.
Yeah.
You explained to me that she might have had being like this like weird rash that she might have
right. Yeah.
being
so
held
she
down.
So she had woken up, and right across like her chest, going like right to the armpit area, and then across her stomach, it looked like, if you picture a tire track of hickeys, that's what it looked like. They were not raised. It was perfectly flat to her skin, and it literally looked like hickey marks, like all the blood had been kind of like sucked up to the top, or like when like if you rub your skin really hard. So I was alarmed, and I took her to the emergency room, and 2 different doctors and a nurse practitioner came in. They did a blood test. Everything was normal. They said they'd never seen anything like that before, and to keep an eye on it. but the diagnosis was NOS, not otherwise specified, because they just didn't know what it was. So when I was telling that story in Misha's support group, David Chase had said that someone had spoke at a MUFON meeting a few years back. And he said when children are taken, they don't knock them out like they do adults, that they actually strap them down. And where the marks were exactly where if you were putting somebody like on a gurney, that you would strap them in. So, and then I had those marks on this, like the side of my boob several times. So, and I don't know if, the fact that it was on my side, I don't know if they had rolled me on my side and were strapping me so I wouldn't fall off. I don't know what that was, but it's very weird, because it's not like a little hickey. I mean, it's like a huge, space of that. So
definitely not normal. Yeah. So, like, do you consider yourself more of a experiencer, a contactee, abductee?
Well, I think I'm a little of all of that. I think most of my experiences have been more visitations. And like so that experience with the blue being, I remember feeling like I was getting a checkup. Like they weren't really there to hurt me. They were just checking on me. I don't know if they were checking my vital signs, I don't know. But that's what it felt like. So the visitation parts feel like that. And then of course, being sucked up into the ship, I definitely feel I was taken somewhere, or just stuff might've been done on the ship, just hanging in the air there. And then when they were done, they put me back. I don't know.
You gave me this nice drawing of a black-haired person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was also a dream. She was standing off in the distance looking at me, and I definitely felt like she wasn't from here. And then I had found out that she looked a lot like what some of the Bashar people describe. Sasani, is that what we think? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I don't know. That was just a real brief. Some of these experiences are just so brief, that you don't, which isn't a bad thing. Usually the brief ones aren't very scary. So,
well, I tend to tell people that, this subject is so complicated, because you might think it's a dream, and a few years later you get confirmation. Again, when I was in the white corridor, that's after a session of meditation. I think in 2013, I would meditate like half an hour before going to bed every day. And that's what happened after that. I went to bed, I woke up, and I'm in this white corridor of all places. And I see this gray in front of me with this wonky hair, which turned out that it was actually something that was on a being. And I got confirmation about years down the road. So this is what happens. A lot of people do have these events, astrally, out of body ish. But there's more to like this earthly realm. There's something out there, and that's why I'm really glad you came on today. You had this nice drawing of I think it's star writing, or
yes. So I think it was around 2013. Someone in one of the Facebook groups offered to do a writing for me. And she gave me this beautiful piece of paper with, all of this writing on it. And I was like thankful. And then it was like a couple months later, I felt like this bubbling up, as if something needed to get out, which I've heard a lot of channelers describe that it just bubbles up and you've got to get it out. So I got a paper and a pen, and I closed my eyes and I just started writing. And so what I sent you is what I did with my eyes closed. So I talked to the girl who did that for me. I said, hey, what do you think this was? So she thought that something in what she did activated something in my subconscious to come out into my consciousness. to get it out. So yeah, so I started started out as symbols and star writing, and then I changed the group name to sound, symbols, and star writing, just because so many frequencies, people, like we talked about the hum. My daughter and I have also heard like cicada sounds and twinkling sounds, real, like right next to our heads. So just lots of, I've done sound therapy with clients, and there's so much to learn about frequency and what each frequency does on a physical and energetic level, right? So yeah, so the writing is kind of, that's a frequency, even though it's, written. When people do this, the star language, right? You've probably heard Misha do that. There's a frequency there, even though you don't understand literally what's being said. It's the frequency of that is very healing.
Debbie, you sent me an interesting photo regarding an experience that one of your friends had. Could you get into that?
Yeah, so this happened 3 days after my experience on November 3rd, where I had the ship experience. She had taken a photo of these 4 or 5 lights in the sky. And I thought that was so interesting that it happened 3 days after my experience. One of the girls in the group, the day after my experience, she had a major experience where there were hieroglyphics all over her walls in her bedroom. But we didn't know this. None of us knew this until like a year later when we were talking about it and we're looking at the dates of everything. My parents had their experience seeing circles in the sky during that same time, and they lived right around the corner from me. So all of these things were happening in this little geographical area in Nashville at the same time, within the same few days of each other. So that was kind of interesting, and again, kind of validating. That was my friend Carol Humphrey, and she had her little flip phone and tried to get a picture, which I think came out pretty decently considering it was a little flip phone. I mean, you can see that there's 4 or 5 distinct lights, and we didn't know what it could be. So.
And did you ever find out with your dad what the circles were? That was something.
We never found that out. He had seen them twice. My mother, who had very bad legs and couldn't walk, he had made her come outside to look at them. And then the third time it happened, I don't think it was the exact same thing. He came back in the house and said to her, "I don't know what just happened, but I don't want to talk about it." And that was it. So, yeah.
And you made a sort of a guide called the Experiencer Toolbox. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so I created that first for myself because I had already been doing a lot of healing modalities with my clients for years. And when you go through something traumatic, you kind of forget that you have these tools that you can use on yourself. So I made this, little flow chart that has all these different things, from essential oils to working with crystals to shamanic journeying. There's a lot of things in common between ET and UFO experiences and shamanic journeying. And I found that was a very healing thing for me to utilize that tool. So it's something people can refer to when they're in a panic and they may not know, how can I come down from this safely and feel nurtured? And they can look at the chart and say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. At the same token, if someone is trying to have experiences, utilizing some of those things can kind of help bring about that, whether it's through meditation or something else.
Okay.
So then there's the book that I had been working on forever. I was working on it for several years. And then again, during this 4-year hiatus, I've just not been dealing with any of this at all. So it's called Happenings. and Kathleen Marden wrote the foreword, and Denise Stoner and Brett Oldham wrote chapters, and then the psychotherapist that works with our group in Nashville, Chris Hancock, also wrote a chapter in there. So someday, when I feel like I can kind of cope a little more with this subject matter, maybe I will get it published. Thankfully, I have friends like you and Mike Cleland, who has really helped me a lot in the writing of that book, to kind of push me along, and it'll come out when it's ready to come out, if it comes out.
Wow. So Debi, I've interviewed Sandy Nichols a while back, and he did talk about you visiting his place. And could you explain to us the whole process of how you two met?
Sure. So Sandy he's a little south of Nashville, and he has like a support group also that he's had for years, and he's had amazing experiences himself. So we kind of just met through osmosis of both of us having groups in Nashville, and two whole separate groups of people. And so it was kind of nice whenever we could all come together and join together at his paranormal palace. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and he talked about his stick man, I think is what he calls him, stick man. And my daughter also had one of her first experiences that I can remember was when she saw this stick figure kind of dancing around her room, is the way she described it. I think she was only about 8 at the time. And she had called for her dad to come in because she was afraid. And it was years later that I found out about Sandy Nichols and his stick man. So I don't know if they're related or not, but kind of an unusual description that you don't hear about very often.
Did she ever describe how big the stick man was?
I think she had said it was like maybe about a foot tall, like really, really small. So, and I don't know how that relates I don't know how big Sandy's was.
Not fairly big,
yeah. So,
okay,
yeah.
So you two met and you went to his paranormal palace or whatever?
Yes, he's got a big, gorgeous, beautiful home. And he has a huge amethyst crystal that was buried under the foyer of his home when the house was being built. And so he'll often hold meetings there where like Brett Oldham would come in with his spirit box, and we would do spirit communication. And it's just a great group of people, lots of good times, lots of yummy food would be there. And yeah, we had been doing a session and all of us were sitting in a circle, and I was extremely hot, just extremely hot. And I didn't know why. And he had held I think it was the EMF meter at me, and it was just off the charts after the session. So I felt like all this heat was building during this session, and it was kind of cool. Like a lot of voices came through, and someone whose daughter had passed away, we think she came through. So yeah, it was something. But yeah, okay. Very, very hot. I think one other person there also got very, very hot.
Okay, wow. So do you have anything else to share with anyone, or like perhaps an ending comment? Or
well, one thing I think I ended my talk at Experiencer Speak with: delusion doesn't create doubt. And that quote comes from The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. And when you think about that, delusion doesn't create doubt. So if you are having these experiences and you are like, oh, did that really happen? That's a good sign that you are, because if you were, there's some people like, this happened and this is exactly how it happened and this is the way it is. That's a little more delusional. So when you start to question yourself, it kind of confirms you're not delusional. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's good to keep questioning and not taking stuff for face value, and not taking whatever this person said and that person says. You got to kind of weed through it and see what speaks to you here in your heart and in your soul of what these experiences are.
Beautiful. Yeah. I do tend to say that blog everything down. because eventually
Yes.
something might make sense.
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely. Journal, because yeah, you'll be able to look back on that and, put the pieces together, hopefully.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Debbie, today.
Oh,
it's been fun
thank you,
speaking to
Yannick.
you.
It was so great to see you.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
thank you again. And to those watching today's episode, hope you enjoyed it. I'm your host, Mr. Gray, and I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Gray, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.